was the final straw that convinced the nation that Labour and the union barons couldn't be trusted to run a piddle up in a brewery, let alone the country. And they gave Mrs. Thatcher a chance. To me, my friends, the parallel is crystal clear. We've got a Labour Chancellor facing a massive budget hole, which they themselves helped dig, and they're considering breaking a 50-year-old taboo. The last time, as I say, the government did this, a Labour government did this, the country was sinking fast. Now that's the background to this budget, isn't it? This is the same party that wants to take more of your money to fund a benefit system that hands out taxpayer-subsidied luxury BMWs. Can you afford a BMW? I haven't got one on the drive. I cannot afford one. Well, I cannot drive yet, but I will be soon. I promise, I promise, I promise. Don't judge. They're handing them out to people who complain about anxiety and all these other things and get personal independence payments. Have a watch of what the BBC actually think is the real scandal here. What I've got on screen there, by the way, is British attitudes towards benefit claimants, and they're hardening. This shows that actually a 52% see and view the welfare state as being far too lax, far too easy to obtain benefits. Have a listen. The BBC put together a package on the Motability scandal, which is a government-funded scheme. And this was the BBC puff piece that they put out.
A Treasury source has told the BBC that the Chancellor feels the scheme has lost focus. A scheme intended to provide essential mobility, now critics say providing too many luxury cars and cars without any adaptations for the disabled. On the Motability website are a number of cars identified by the Treasury as luxury models, available at a lower price than normal. But Farah Black doesn't agree. She made an advance payment to cover the additional cost of her luxury car and feels the criticism targets the disabled community.
Why should it not be allowed? Personally, prior to my accident and amputations, I was a petrol head. Why can I not continue to be? I wasn't just looking at a fancy car. I was looking at how safe it would be for me, and my car keeps me safe.
The Treasury are adamant that any changes will be about making public money go further and ensuring those who need to access the scheme are able to do so. But people like Farah, who say the current scheme is working well, have urged the Chancellor to pump the brakes. Patrick Fee, BBC Newsline.
Now, look, I'm not saying that everybody that's taking advantage of the Motability scheme is driving around in a BMW like that woman clearly is. But she, you know, has been made a living out of advocacy for the disabled. And I would argue that actually far too many people who are taking advantage of this scheme simply aren't disabled. They said there in that piece, despite the framing of the actual piece itself, you know, she says, I was a petrol head. Why can't I drive a luxury BMW? Well, because the taxpayer doesn't have a pot to piddle in. We are being squeezed to a pulp. Debt to GDP is at 100%. That means that the amount of money that we generate, we are now in debt to that full amount. We've got no money left to actually put into the coffers additionally. That's why Rachel Reeves is squeezing with every last vestige that she has in her socialist clutches to actually drag more money out of you, even going after income tax to try and hit pensioners. So, look, I don't think that everyone has a right to a BMW. I don't. I'm afraid some people will say I'm heartless. I don't. While working families, right, are taxed to the hilt, we're funding BMWs for benefit claimants. So I would argue that the charge of law and order, they can't even remember themselves what actually duty and sacrifice looks like anymore. And that's leading to a whole host of issues. You know, in this here, you can see here that the number of economically inactive people due to long term sickness in the United Kingdom has actually gone up absolutely hugely. And Labour's benefit reforms never came to fruition. They never brought them in. It never happened. They relented. They went back. They reverse ferreted like a rat up a drain pipe. And we haven't had that brought in to full view. But the reason I mention, and that of course is the welfare, showing that the British people are growing in their discontent with the benefit system. But that I think leads us on. You talk about duty, right? You talk about sacrifice. You talk about how we can't be everything to everyone, including asylum seekers. The benefits bill in that regard, the asylum bill has gone up and up and up. Asylum seekers, illegal migrants, whatever you want to call them. People that shouldn't be here, that's what I'd call them. But we talk about, right, this week in particular, we talk about duty and sacrifice.